Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Anurag Hamilton, and currently I'm acting as convener of Institute Innovation Council at University of Engineering and Management, Jaipur. I welcome all of you to orientation session and panel discussion on National Education Policy 2020 with a focus on innovation and entrepreneurship. National Education Policy was approved by Union Cabinet on 29th of July 2020. NEP 2020 aims to pave way for transformational changes in higher and school education. We have gathered here to gain some insights about this new education policy. We have distinguished speakers and panelists with us. I would just like to introduce all of them to you. We have Professor Dr. Bishwaja Chatterjee. He is president at UEM Jaipur. We have Professor Dr. Anirudh Mukherjee. He is Dean Academics at UEM Jaipur. We have Mr. Anish Vishwanath. He is manager of Career Development Center. We have Professor Dr. Pradeep Kumar Sharma. He is provost and registrar at UEM Jaipur. Now I would like to request Professor Dr. Bishwaja Chatterjee to give us some brief overview about this new education policy.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So thanks to all the attendees who have come over here. I would firstly, before this panel discussion begins, I am just taking this opportunity as communicated by Dr. Anurag to show some highlights of this national education policy. Now, regarding this, this is a big PPT, big presentation, but I will request all audience to not get worried about such a big PPT. I will only talk about the important points or the things that will actually affect you. And I believe that in this session, there are mostly the students. So I will try to keep it as simple and as informative for the students, or which actually concerns the students. So the first thing about national education policy is, let me clarify that this policy does not at the moment go into details of implementation. It talks about what is to be done. How it is to be done will be clarified further by the different implementation policies which will come out and have been talked about in this policy at various points. First and foremost thing is that, and secondly, there are two parts in this policy, as you can understand. First is the school education, second is the college education. So what are the important points in school education? Firstly, see, in school education, the first thing that comes is, I will request all of you to look into the heading: ensuring universal access at all levels of school education. This basically talks about bringing back the school children into the mainstream. That is, bringing back the dropouts, or maybe those people which are unable to get a school education, to ensure that those people get a proper school education. How is that possible? A few points have been talked about. The number one point that has been talked about is there are multiple pathways to learning. Number one. Other points that have been talked about is counselors associated in different schools to counsel the students and ensure that they don't drop out. Well-trained social workers in the schools so that they don't drop out. Open learning is possible for the students. Then classes 3, 5 and 8 through NIOS and state open schools are possible. So you can understand, through all of this, students who drop out or are unable to get an education can come back to school education. Even adult literacy has been talked about, ensuring that somebody who has missed out school in his proper years, in his or her proper years, should be able to attend school. Now, how all these will be implemented, that really depends on the implementation policy that we will be getting very soon. But the target is that 2 crore school children will be brought back into mainstream. 2 crore school children will be brought back into mainstream under this national education policy. Now, this talks about early childhood care and education. A very, very important point under this policy. I repeat, early childhood care and education, which means in early childhood, a student is supposed to get proper care and education. Now, as most of you know, that the most important part of this policy is that the 10+2 structure has been changed to 5+3+3+4. I will repeat, I will say what it means. The 10+2 structure has been changed to 5+3+3+4. What does this mean? Now, many of you have initially, when this policy was declared, I saw in social media that many of you asked a basic question that 10+2 makes it 12, but 5+3+3+4 makes it 15. So how is this 12 getting converted to 15? Now, let me tell you, at the moment, what happens is 10+2 means a student generally is expected to be in his or her class 1 when he is 6 years age. I repeat, when he is 6 years of age, it is expected that the student will be in his or her class 1. So he attends his class 10 exam, school final that we say, class 10 exam at 16 years of age. Now, when he or she is 18 years of age, generally, I'm talking about general things, there might be deviation, but 18 years of age, he takes the class 12 exam. Here also, this 18 figure remains the same, but still, why this is 15? Because here it says that the ages, the early childhood care is needed. So it will start right from age 3. You believe me, many students at their early childhood drops out of education, unable to understand or unable because of, what should I say, inability of their family. But over here, right from 3 years, it has been talked about that from his age 3, early childhood care will be ensured. So 3 years to 8 years of age, a student will get an education of 5 years. So it is expected that at the age of 8, he will be appearing for an examination. It is expected, though not very specifically mentioned in the policy. 8 to 11, his second phase of education, when he is 3 years, like right now we start from 6 years, but here we have covered the age of 3 to 6 years. You can understand, right now we were talking from 6 years of age in class 1. Here 3 to 6 years have been covered. So from age 3 to 8, student is going to get his early childhood care and education. Then again 8 years to 11 years is second phase of education, and expected that at age 11 will be second phase of examination. 11 years to 14 years, third phase of education, expected by an examination at the end. And then 14 to 18 years. So 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. So we again end at 18, expected that class 12 will be at 18 years only. Now this will, you can understand, this will bring the uncovered age group of 3 to 6 years under school curriculum. Now how, that has also been mentioned. Anganwadi or preschooling, that is 12 years of schooling with 3 years, that is 3 to 6, which was uncovered till now. So 12 years of schooling remains the same, but initially 3 years of Anganwadi or preschooling has been specifically mentioned in this policy. For this setting up of this early childhood care and education, the policy has talked about that a national curricular and pedagogical framework will be developed, which will be meant towards this, focusing towards this early childhood care and education. However, this policy will be in a position to talk about this framework once it is formed. Right now, it has only been talked about. Foundational literacy and numeracy, yes, again, a national mission will be formed for foundational literacy and numeracy. But again, we will be in a position to talk about it in details once this national mission of foundational literacy is formed by MHRD properly. Now, what are the reforms further that has been talked about? Please understand, if the foremost important point was that initial covering of 3 to 6 years of age, then the second most important point is this slide that I will be talking about. Reduce the curricular content. Whatever curricular content is right now there, reduce it. Remember, again, it is not in details. The curricular content has not been talked about, but it has only said that the curricular content is to be reduced. If it is reduced, then what is to be done in lieu of that? Greater focus on experiential learning. That is, you learn by doing, which means this point, there is a high chance, which has been touched in this policy again, that from the 6th grade only, a student can have opportunity to go for internships. I repeat, right from his 6th grade, class 6, a student might have opportunity to go for internships, which means experiential learning will be given greater focus in lieu of the curricular content, which will be reduced. And that also means once you get into experiential learning, once you are working, as you all will agree, that once you are an engineer, you are working in a company, there is hardly any difference between arts and science. You use your arts, you use your science also. So it has been specifically mentioned that rigid separation between arts and science will not be there. Now, what does that indicate? What does that imply? A very, very important thing that it implies is that you might find a student having or passing out with a combination of physics, maths, and history, which is not a possibility at the moment. But as far as whatever has been given in the policy till now, it appears that it is highly possible that the student passing out is not PCM or PCB or what we generally believe nowadays. He might have physics, maths, and history. He might have maths, chemistry, and geography, because there is hardly any, it says that no rigid separation will be there between arts and science. And again, because it will be internship based learning, experiential learning, that's why no rigid difference between curricular and extracurricular activities. Students will learn by doing. Extracurricular activities will be formed in such a way that while performing the extracurricular activities, students will learn. There might be games, quite a bit of opportunity for our students of computer science who are in app development. Quite a number of apps you can find in future coming out, by playing which a student learns his or her chemistry, by playing which a student learns his or her mathematics. Maybe something like a game where you are on a mission, and on the mission you are basically learning your chemistry. That might be a possibility. Now, multilingualism and the power of language. As you have all known, again, the third most important point of the policy is it has talked about mother tongue and local language or regional language to be a medium of instruction. But let me tell you, there are some wrong implementation already of this. I have heard that many schools have started forcing the mother tongue or the local language as the medium of instruction. But believe me, the policy has very clearly mentioned no language will be imposed on any student. I repeat, it has already, this policy, this line has been taken care of, and mother tongue or local language has been already been forced in many schools. As far as I have got to understand, I might be wrong, but this policy says no language will be imposed on any student, which means that if a student, it might be a remote possibility also that a school teaches the subject, but the subject can be learned. Subject, if it is not a language class, then a student can learn the subject in any language, that is history. If the school is teaching history, one student in the class can learn this history in Bengali, one student in the class can learn this history in English, one student in the class can learn that history topic in Hindi. It is a possibility, because it has been said that no language will be imposed on any student. Again, please remember, because we are talking about increasing the number of students to come into school education, increasing the amount of students, or 2 crore more students getting into education, Indian Sign Language is also to be standardized, which means that whatever sign, if a student has got hearing problem, hearing impairment, student with hearing impairment can be talking in Indian Sign Language. It will be standardized across the country. Also foreign language, a student, if he is a foreigner, he can learn in foreign language. Basically, one sentence, no language is to be imposed on any student. Nowhere it says that the language has to be imposed. However, it is said that preferably mother tongue or local language has to be given focus upon. Now, assessment reforms, again, because as I was giving a hint that 10+2 has been changed, and 3, 5, and 8, it has been come into picture, which means it is expected that at the age of 8, a student might have some assessment. At the age of 11, he might have some assessment. At the age of 14, he might have some assessment. At the age of 18, he might have some assessment. Though it depends on the implementation of the policy further. But one line summary again, shift from summative assessment to regular and formative assessment. Now I will highlight this regular and formative assessment. What should that mean? That should mean, though policy has to be again implementation has to be very clearly mentioned, but summative assessment, I should mean that marks basis, that is whatever marks he is getting. But here regular assessment means regular classes a student will be interacted with, and his regular performance in the class will have to be judged in order that the student actually perform something or get his marks or whatever you call it. I will go a little fast. Again, equitable and inclusive education, which means that again, to increase the number of enrollments, number of students going for school education, socially and economically disadvantaged groups will be given a lot of focus. There will be special education zones for these disadvantaged students and the regions and the groups. Special education zones will be formed, and even it has talked about this, that I'll go to the next slide very quickly, this one. Yeah, this one, that the schools can be organized into complexes or clusters, which means that schools will only be facilitating the education, or it will create an environment where the students can learn. Teacher recruitment, it has talked about policies which will be formed for recruitment of teachers, that the teachers will have to go through that policy. That policy will actually say how teachers will be recruited, but teachers will be recruited through robust, transparent processes, which should have better and better teachers in future. Even accreditation for school education has been talked about. Right now, we only know about accreditation of colleges. However, there will be a framework. Again, a framework will be formed, a policy will be formed through which quality of schools will be judged and the schools will be accredited also. Now, as far as college education is concerned, again, the same thing. GER, that is the gross enrollment ratio, it has to be increased to 50%. That is 50% of the students will go. It was 26.3% in 2018. In 2018, only 26.3% of the students from schools go to higher education. It has been targeted that 50% of the students from schools will go for higher education by 2035. And 3.5 crore new seats will be added to the higher education institutions. That is possible by adding 3.5 crore new seats to the higher education institutions. So more and more seats have been talked about. And over here, most important point under higher education, once again, now we know that at the end of 3 years or 4 years, a students get a degree. So what if a student drops out? A student drops out at his second year. What does he get? Basically nothing. A student completing 2 years and then going out gets nothing. Over here, it has been talked about that after 1 year of study, a student will be given a certificate. So the curriculum will have to be formed like that also. It is not only saying, see, it's better. Again, I tell you, it is more difficult doing it than saying it. So the policy has to be also implemented in such a way, the curriculum has to be implemented in such a way that a student learns enough or learns a portion of the syllabus enough that after 1 year, a certificate can be given to him. After 2 years, an advanced diploma can be given to him. After 3 years, bachelor's degree can be given to it. And after 4 years, bachelor's with research can be given to him. Which means that if a student drops out after 2 years, cannot continue with his study, he gets an advanced diploma. If he drops out after 3 years, cannot continue with his last year, he gets the bachelor's degree. After 4 years, he gets the bachelor's with research degree. So this is the foremost important point. Several exit options, multiple exit options is the foremost important point of this policy. The second most important point, an academic bank of credits. What it means is a student after 1 year can change his institution. A student after 2 years can change his institution. That is, he goes from one institution to another institution at the end of 2 years without losing anything. Now it is not possible because the syllabus of one institution is different from the syllabus of the other institution. But here it is talking about a student will only have to earn credits from the topics he learns. And he can learn that topic in any year. That is, in first year, a student can learn any X topic. And that same X topic can be learned by a student in his third year also. But within this 4 years, he will have to learn that topic X mandatory. So if he changes his institution, maybe at the end of first year, then he has got an option that he earns that credit, that topic, by learning that topic, he earns that credit in his second year in a different institution. So he can easily shift his institution at the end of any year that he likes to. A regulation will be formed, again a regulation, but again until and unless the policy is formed, the implementation is formed, it is very difficult to talk about that. But it has talked about that the Higher Education Commission of India will be judging it, and there will be 4 parts in it. One part for regulation, forming the regulations, one part for setting the standards, one part for the funding parts to the different institution, and another for the accreditation of the different institutions. There will be again rationalized institutional architecture, means a university can be research intensive, can be teaching intensive, but its affiliation of the colleges is to be phased out in 15 years, and a stage-wise mechanism is to be established for granting autonomy. That is, that an institution cannot get autonomy as it is. Suddenly it cannot be autonomous. A stage-wise implementation of 15 years will be talked about. Through this 15 years, an institution might get gradually completely autonomous. Faculty, again, faculty recruitment norms will be formed. So once those norms are formed, we can talk about that. But the idea is motivating, energizing, and building capacity of faculty. That is a very, very important thing. Talk about teacher education, talks about mentoring mission. Teacher education says that there will be a curriculum or a framework for educating the teachers. A framework will be formed for educating the teachers. And mentoring mission says that senior faculties, a pool of senior faculties will be formed to mentor the junior faculties. A pool of faculties of seniors will be formed to mentor the junior faculties so that better teachers come out in higher education. Financial support will be provided to the students. Maybe these categories will also be covered in, but it has talked about this SEDGs, you know about that, general students will also be with economic difficulties, student will be given grants. So student grant, economic difficulties if you are having, then grants will be given to students from general category also. It has given a hint of that. Free ships and scholarships will be provided to more and more students. Even the private higher education institutions will be motivated, or they will be given incentives to provide larger number of free ships and scholarships to their students. So it is expected that more and more students will be able to get into higher education. So the target is, as I said, 50% of the students from school education will get into higher education. Open and distance learning will be there. So as I said, that to increase the GER, gross enrollment ratio, open learning will be allowed. At the moment, open learning is not being allowed, distance learning is not being allowed to get a degree. But it is saying that more and more colleges, if there is a hint that more and more colleges will be allowed to go for distance learning for giving away of degrees, so that more and more students can actually learn. Online education, digital education to be encouraged, and more technology will be brought into education. Again, a national education technology forum will be set up to think how technology can be brought into education, like classroom processes can be improved, like education access for disadvantaged groups, as I talked about SEDGs, socially and economically disadvantaged groups. Again, it has not been talked about SEDGs. It has not been given a details about SEDGs, but what has been talked about is it is socially and economically disadvantaged groups. So there is a hint that more and more students, even from general category, will be treated under these groups and will be given scholarships and freeships for continuing with education. Indian languages to be promoted. This is an important point. Internationalization of education, which means top world ranked universities now can open their campuses in our country. Now, if there are management gurus over here, or there are academic managers over here, you may put this into a consideration that top world ranked universities are coming, so they are also going to be the competitors of the Indian education providers. Professional education will also be an integral part, which means health science universities, legal universities, agricultural universities will be set up. Universities dedicated towards agriculture, universities dedicated towards law education, more universities dedicated towards health science, standalone technical education, technical universities, that is universities only imparting technical educations, which will increase the number of professional education enrollments. So this is the last thing, last slide. Aim to achieve 100% youth and adult literacy. It has already been talked about, like those people who have missed out their education in time. It will be targeted that those adult people will be achieving education, and 100% adult literacy, that is no people, if any adult has passed out without studying, then he will be brought back to education, and education will be financed. More and more public investment in education sector will be encouraged. Maybe it is a hint that people or the business tycoons might be given incentives or bonus to actually what should I say, fund education. It's a big thing to say, though I should not saying anything like that, should not be saying anything like that, but still there is a hint that people can actually fund, or the business guru can fund education, so that we can reach 6% of GDP in education at the earliest. This should be my last point. 6% of GDP to be reached in education at the earliest. Thank you. I think I have tried to give a hint about this entire policy. I will again ask Mr. Dr. Anurag to take over from here and continue with this discussion about this policy with the other panelists.
Thank you, Dr. Bishwajoy Chatterjee, for an informative presentation. It was really interesting. Now I have some questions and thoughts in my mind, and I would like to ask them to the panelists. I would like to ask Professor Dr. Anirudh Mukherjee, I have one question, that how NEP will help in improving research culture and innovative mindset among students?
Good morning, the panelists here. It's a wonderful question you have put through. Well, to answer it, I would like to extend it to the post-pandemic, pre-pandemic scenario and post-pandemic scenario up to that. See, during the last 8 to 9 months, the entire humanity worldwide has undergone a near total transformation due to this COVID-19 pandemic. And more less obsolete the kind of life we live, and we have already transformed into a new world order system. So As life has to go on after facing all such lockdowns, curfews, and other isolatory events, one understands the necessity of research in spite of the restrictions and limitations. So we must understand that the essence of education is to create a good, thoughtful, well-rounded, and creative individuals. And such scientific temperament are a requirement to boost up the morality of the society. So hence, this national education policy, as I believe, as implemented as framed in 2020, as I believe it ushers in a new thought in the process of implementation of higher education and, of course, school education. The first and foremost, the thing that strikes to me as it ushers in a new paradigm shift in terms of research is it establishes a national research foundation, which is a very new concept till now. So this national research foundation beforehand was not in place. So this will definitely provide us the basic requirements of transforming the education and institutions from being a simple degree granting colleges, as the national education policy also cites three institutions in, it exemplifies institutions under three categories. There is research intensive universities and universities which emphasize on teaching, so it says teaching intensive universities, and also the autonomous degree granting colleges. So it categorizes the universities, the institutions under three categories, which is a very new concept, and this will also boost up the institutions which emphasizes on research orientations. And not to mention, is not will not be out of, there is no such rigid categorization between these three institutions. Then these three different institutions, research intensive universities, teaching intensive universities, and the autonomous degree granting colleges, shall be in continuum, and they should impart both professional education in an integrated manner. And as our Vice Chancellor sir has rightly said, that there will be multidisciplinary options. So this will also boost up in the research environment in any universities. And the most important of all, what I found about the research foundation is that it establishes, with the National Research Foundation, it establishes with a goal to permeate the research culture throughout the higher education institutions. It will have a rotating board of governors consisting of eminent researchers and innovators. We should govern this. And to find competitive grant proposals for peer-reviewed, all types of grant proposals for all streams and disciplines. It will initiate, facilitate, and promote research at higher education institutions. And most importantly, it will act as a liaison between the researchers and the government branches, which is most important, I believe. So it will definitely put forth all these initiatives. It will definitely put forth a better research environment in the coming days.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Anirudh Mukherjee. Now I have one question for Mr. Anish Vishwanath. How NEP will help in improving placement of students?
Thank you, Dr. Anka. I'm Anish Vishwanath from the Placement Department. I would like to state a few things regarding this national education policy. In fact, I believe it is going to be a game changer because previously the education policy did not focus much on skills or jobs. But the current the national education policy is going to be a game changer because here the main focus is on the development of the ultimate young generation, the ultimate go-getters, the students who are going to get the jobs. Because now the students will be trained as per the new education policy. There will be a lot of focus on skills, where the students will be trained on the different skills from the day one. Previously, the education was more on getting a good grade, and it was more on different. The education system was completely different. But now, like Dr. Chatterjee said, the education policy is completely changed because now it will be more on merit based, where the students will be monitored from day one, where there will be a lot of feedback taking on. So once the students start as per the new education policy, the students will be more prepared for the jobs. So once the interviewer comes and they will be able to crack the jobs. Another one important point I want to make here is, as per the previous education policy, there was a lot of confusion because the employers always never used to get the right talent, means the right fit for the job, and moreover the students did not get the right job for their demands. So always there was a industry and academia gap was there. But now, since this as a new policy, there's a lot of plans on bridging that gap, because the students, because there will be a lot of the government has, as per the education policy, has given the employers lot of options, so that they can take the students from the day one. Once it will be like a training mode only, where the students, they can work in the organization, and that will be a part of the training. So when the students come out, they are prepared for the skill sets. They will be more fit for the jobs. That means whatever they're wanting, maybe they will be able to match the jobs, and so the placement scenario will definitely improve. So if the policy is implemented properly, the policy can reshape the future of the workforce and make the emerging job seeker job ready. And one of the major challenges which we face as placement officers was the job readiness of the students. Means passing students are not ready for their first job and always in a dilemma whether they want to stay or quit the job. This is because they were not properly trained. Now, once this new policy comes into effect, the students will get the proper training at the proper places, so that the students understand that how to adapt in the new environment, how to work in the environment, what skill sets are required, and how to work in a peer-to-peer environment where they have to perform from day one. So the placement scenario will definitely improve, and because this national education policy focuses on the skill deployment other than a good report card, the students will become more employable. So I believe the institutions becoming more autonomous, there is more power of designing syllabus and pedagogy. So the skill-based education will make the student more job ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anish. Now I would like to ask one point to Professor Dr. Pradeep Kumar Sharma, that what are the challenges in implementation of NEP?
Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay. So first of all, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Bisjoy Chatterjee, who has, in a very simple manner, given all the details of the NEP. And definitely it's a very big challenge to implement that. But right now, as he said, that it's not an issue to implement, but to understand what actually it will deliver and how it can be done. Basically, that a point of focus we should take care of. So in that particular aspect, I just want to show a small discussion I want to make with all the participants here. Definitely, national education policy is having challenges. So let us see what are the impediments to implement the national education policy in school and higher education institutions. First of all, you can say the most important part is changing the mindset. The mindset, because whatsoever the education system right now we are having, you can say school education or higher education, it's we are dealing with like for decades. But to change it immediately, it is not possible. A STEM education focused generation has to give way to the NEP. Then corporate world also will need to align this and change its recruitment and grooming policies. So there will be several challenges in changing this mindset. However, it can be done if government have some soft power play for that. Okay, so definitely the change in mindset will involve 2 or more generation of parents, teachers, grandparents, and educators. So that we need to take care of. So this is I understand that this is the most important challenge what we have to face. Then reimaging and adopting pedagogical changes. So what are these? Basically that everywhere where the skills, foundation skills of literacy, numeracy, and higher order cognitive skills like critical thinking, that we are actually education must not only develop this, but also social and emotional skills known as the soft skills like empathy, grit, perseverance, leadership, teamwork. So national education policy calls for such value-based learning along with significant curriculum and pedagogical changes. Now, all these changes, all whatsoever the shift we are doing, we are trying to do, will require skilled staff, skilled faculty members, teachers. So these pedagogical changes are tough and need to be reimagined and for successful implementation. So that is there. Another will be the rethinking of the assessment, as Professor Vishjoy already spoken about the assessment part, that is the important one. So boards that conduct school leaving examination will have to rethink their assessment parameters for students, and they have to also identify the appropriate learning content rubric. So school textbooks will have to be accordingly realigned. Formative assessment is virtually absent, and how do we adapt and implement it seamlessly? Because majority of the class 12 learners in India are enrolled in schools with annual tuition fee below rupees 12,000, and the proposed changes will have to be conveniently cascaded across different tiers of schools. That basically we have to think about it. It's a challenge we have to face. Now this is the biggest challenge, because everywhere what we are thinking about to shift to the new education policy, training educators. Implementing board objectives will require training teachers, educators, and official staff appropriately, along with preparing a pool of excellent motivating guides. So learning has to be an enjoyable and engaging task rather than an arduous exercise, which ultimately churns out unemployable youth. So that is not our target. Basically, the policy will have to design a learning ecosystem which takes into account the geographical and cultural diversity of our country, as well as the varied learning pace of each student. Bottom-up approach we have to take care of. So we are in our system, Indian system, we can say we are socially programmed to accept top-down approach everywhere, whether it's job, whether it's school education, higher education, everywhere we have to we are basically aligned with the top-down approach. But this social and educational transformation is only possible with a bottom-up grassroots level intervention. And in the grand scheme of things, what we are thinking about in National Education Policy 2020, an important action would be to repair and revamp the system through a bottom-up approach and bring a definitive change in the mindset of the stakeholders, including the office staff and parents, right at the outset. A transformation is needed from what to think and to how to think. So that is more important. The bottom-up approach that is there, that should be there. Raising the bar for teachers, that's the, you can say, it's a challenging job, but again and again everyone is saying the teachers, trainers, we need to hire the very best and brightest to enter the teaching profession at all levels, whether it's school, higher education, universities, research levels. All teachers need to be reinstated as the most respected and essential members of our society, as they are the ones who truly shape our next generation. So work also needs to be done in removing personal and professional barriers of working in remote and inaccessible locations, which is very crucial for preparing this workforce and also for making the NEP successful. Now, funding and scaling the new model, because everyone is talking about what to do, how to do, when to do, when to train the teachers, when to give proper education to students. But we need to understand the basic problem of funding. Over 250 million students are expected to enroll in a school by 2030, as per the statement given in the NEP. Now, with the teacher-student ratio of average like 1:35, India will need 7 million plus teachers to address this huge student population. So those teachers need to have graduated in an esteemed, B.Ed program for a 12th pass, graduate and postgraduates for 1, 2, and 4 year respectively. So teaching also happened to be one of the lowest paid professions in India, as we know that with an average teaching earning around rupees 2 lakhs per year. And due to these constraints, conceptual and experiential teaching will be tough as compared to prevailing printed content-oriented teaching. Now, more fund allocation is required from the government or whatsoever the private funding agencies to overcome this majority shortcoming. Also, the current pool of teachers has to be oriented towards the new age teaching techniques. But we have to see that in higher education, given the limited resources at hand, it requires private institutions to offer more scholarship to make admissions possible for students from low income strata as well. But NEP fails to discuss how this can be achieved. This indicates a need for greater public funding in higher education, which really does not sit well within the current scenario. The increase in education budget from 3% to 6% of GDP is simply not enough to meet the implementation needs right now, because you can understand that during COVID situation last year, the overall GDP and overall, you can say, the economic scenario of the country is changed. So I think that is a bigger challenge right now. Learning or certificate or degree. So that is basically will be a confusing statement, because flexibility in higher education model through the concept of multiple exits is available, and it's an important step for reducing the number of dropouts. But a question still arises on the value of such certifications and diploma. The Indian psych closely associates jobs with the degree acquired. And to implement the new system, we first have to dismantle the archaic thinking that only with a degree can one successfully secure a job. And this is, you can say, a dangerous paradigm which undermines and discourages other innate talents of an individual. And whenever we see that, okay, after 1 year or 2 years, the student can be out with a certificate or diploma, so how you will maintain the number of students taking the education? So that is again a challenge. Now, orientation towards multidisciplinary education. So that's again been discussed, and policy seeks to establish multidisciplinary institutions for higher education, replacing the single disciplinary ones. And road to attain this goal has been paved with good intentions. So I hope, Dr. Anurag, I have answered your question. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Pradeep Kumar Sharma. You have answered all the question. It was really nice PPT. And I truly agree with your points, all these points, and we need to find solution for all these points. Now I would like to ask Professor Dr. Anirudh Mukherjee. I have one question, that how NEP will help in developing higher order thinking among students.
Is Dr. Anirudh Mukherjee present over here? Maybe he has lost his connection or something like that.
Yes, sir.
Anurag, I believe he has lost his connection or something like that, maybe. So can you proceed with the next question?
Yes, sir. I think there is some technical issue. Now I would like to ask Mr. Anish Vishwanath that how imparting vocational training will increase entrepreneurship culture among students.
Thank you, Dr. Anurag. It's a very relevant question. I believe the vocational training will increase the entrepreneurship culture among students because, like Dr. Sharma said, as per the new education policy, if there is multiple exits, our hierarchy, our company hierarchy believes that the students should get a degree for jobs. There is certain cutbacks and everything, but then there are certain students who are more focused on, who are skill based, who are particularly skilled in particular things in particular aspect. Now, if they increase their skills by taking this vocational training, they will be able to self-place them. That is, they will be able to do some entrepreneurship on their own. So I believe that the vocational training is a very good option for them as per the new education policy. And these jobs are scarce and many of the students remain unemployed at the end. The skill-based vocational training opens a lot of entrepreneurship opportunities to the students. Vocational training, I believe, will help the students to hone in the essential skills and generate a lot of opportunities, that is earning opportunities. Now this is a very good shift actually, because once the students start earning themselves, doing their own entrepreneurship, they are earning a revenue, and once they generate a revenue of their own to further the growth of this particular model, their entrepreneurship model, they may invite their peers or other students to join in their model. So the entrepreneurship, the other students also will be interested in this particular revenue, and they may also take to open to entrepreneurship. Now so the entrepreneurship culture among the students will grow, and moreover, once the success happens in a particular entrepreneurship, in a particular thing, in a particular startup or whatever the students have opened, now it will also be able to generate jobs, because they will be needing people to further their growth. So I believe that overall it's a win-win situation. Now the students can become self-employed in a particular domain of their choice. They can thus opening up an employment channel. Moreover, when there will be it is very good for the economy also, because a lot of jobs will be created. And overall, it is a great win-win situation, I believe, which will help in the entrepreneurship culture. Thank you, Dr. Was I able to answer your question?
Yes, sir. You have answered the question, and it was really interesting. Thank you for that. Now I would like to request Professor Dr. Pradeep Kumar Sharma. I have one question for you, that what kind of training needs to be given to teachers?
Okay. I am visible? I'm audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So as you are aware that most of the expectations from the national education policy are from the training, and as well as you can say the implementers of this particular policy, and that is where the trainers, teachers, faculty members come into picture. And definitely, because national education policy, definitely teachers will be at the forefront, and we need to take care of that aspect also. So proper training of all those members, faculty members, teaching staff need to be taken care of. So I'm just putting one simple discussion here. I hope, is it visible to all? Dr. Anurag, can you confirm, please?
It is visible.
Okay. So as you are seeing that the most important part of the teaching learning process, the innovative pedagogy, right? So over here we can see that every aspect what we are thinking, like experiential learning, focus on experiential, inquiring and discovery-based teaching learning methods. Integrated pedagogy, arts, sports, and storytelling, and ICT integrated pedagogy. Promotion of peer tutoring, promoting peer tutoring as voluntary and joyful activity under the supervision of teachers. Equal weightage, no hard separation between curriculum and co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Freedom of choosing a variety of subject combination to be provided. Bagless days, use and integration of technology. So you see, all these works need to be understood and given to the students by the teachers. Teacher will ensure that all these things will happen. And textbook with local content and flavor. So all textbooks to contain only essential core materials. Affordable, high quality, energized textbooks to be provided, along with the free digital version on Diksha platform. states to prepare their own curricula and textbook based on NCERT curriculum and textbooks, incorporating state flavor and material as needed. Concerted efforts through suitable changes and to reduce the weight of school bags and textbooks. Transforming the culture of assessment, continuous tracking, board exams to be more flexible, assessment to focus on core concepts, higher order and foundational skills, AI-based software to help track the progress of the students. National Assessment Center will help in bringing greater synergy in board exams, self-assessment and peer assessment. National Testing Agency will work to offer high quality. So all these works like holistic progress cards, different activities are there. Oh, and the most important part, 3 language proposal. So medium of instruction up till grade 5, preferably till grade 8 and beyond will be home language, mother tongue or local language. So all these aspects definitely who will perform? Teachers. Now when the teachers come into picture, definitely they must be properly trained. Teacher education will gradually be moved by 2030 into multidisciplinary college and universities. So multidisciplinary higher education institutions offering the 4-year in-class integrated BI program to also provide blended and ODL mode of teaching to students in remote areas. So you can understand that 4-year integrated BI minimum degree qualification for teaching that include a student teaching at local schools by 2030. 2-year B.Ed program will be required for applicants with an existing bachelor's degree in other specialized subjects. 1-year B.Ed program for those who have completed the equivalent of 4-year multidisciplinary bachelor degree or have obtained a master's degree in a specialty. So all these things must be there with the teachers. Then all B.Ed programs will include training in time-tested techniques in pedagogy, multi-level teaching and evaluation, teaching children with disabilities, teaching children with special interests or talents, use of educational technology, and learner-centered and collaborative learning. Shorter local teacher education programs to be available at BITES, DIETS, or at school complexes for eminent local persons who can be hired to teach at schools as master instructors for promoting local professions, knowledge, and skills. For example, local art, music, agriculture, business, etc. Now you can understand how we can improve the teacher education. First, the comprehensive national curriculum framework for teacher education, it will be here by I think end of 2021 or within that. All teacher education programs to be conducted within composite multidisciplinary institutions. Then only educationally sound multidisciplinary and integrated teacher education programs to be made available. NTA testing for admission to B.Ed, that will be done. Merit-based scholarship for 4-year B.Ed integrated. Stringent action against substandard standalone teacher education institutions. So that is the most important part to ensure the quality of teachers. Setting up of national mission for mentoring with a large pool of outstanding senior or retired faculty members. And National Higher Education Regulatory Council NHERC to function as single point regulator for higher education sector including teacher education. So this will basically teacher eligibility test at all stages will be strengthened. So definitely this will enhance the teacher training and teacher recruitment and deployment, transfer system, strengthening the TETs, test score and demonstration part of the recruitment, tech-based planning for teacher recruitment, restructuring of NCT and certificate courses. So all these things will be, you can say, monitored by the governing body. And empowering teacher, technology-based comprehensive teacher recruitment planning forecasting exercise to be conducted by each state. Teachers to have more autonomy in choosing aspects of pedagogy in classroom teaching. Career growth to be available for teachers within a single school stage, that is foundational, preparatory, middle or secondary, academic leadership positions to be made available for teachers, national professional standards for teachers by 2022, and teacher professional development, merit-based tenure track system, and minimum 50 hours of continuous professional development, improving service environment through better infrastructure at school or institutions. So this will be the method or process by which we can empower our teachers. Definitely, school leadership will have to take some part, like necessary facilities to be provided for initial professional preparedness, like continuous professional development. CPD opportunities will in particularly systematically cover the latest pedagogies, like that already I have covered this. And this is the timeline, what we are basically putting forward for every department, because right now the implementation, we are not thinking that implementation will be done immediately. So there are challenges with the other parts as well as the for the teaching training also. So you can see teachers education will gradually be moved into multidisciplinary colleges and universities with minimum degree qualification 4-year BEd, that is 2029-30, right? So we have time definitely, but not such much time because there is a national education policy, and definitely it should take some time to be implemented in a proper manner by taking care of all the aspects of what we are thinking. So I hope I have answered your question, Dr. Anurag.
Yes, sir, you have answered my question, and thank you for that. At the same time, I request all the attendees, if you have any question or any comments, any thought, you can write in the chat box. I'll be going through it at the end. Now I have one last question for Professor Dr. Bishwajoy Chatterjee. How you think UEM Jaipur will be taking all necessary steps for implementation of NEP, and how much time will it require?
Okay, so am I audible, I believe?
Yes,
I'm audible?
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I will just once more show my screen. So your question is how much time UEM Jaipur will be taking to implement. So I will just again once more go to those college education thing and take up the points very quickly. See, about increasing of GER, I think this is something that higher education, the government will actually form a policy, because the whole thing depends on that only. Now, regarding these points, the points which are the major points under national education policy, regarding these exit options, let me tell you, UEM Jaipur, as the Vice Chancellor of this university, I can say UEM Jaipur is following a syllabus which is CBCS, choice-based credit system. So all the topics are having some credits, and the student can choose the topics as per their requirement at the moment. The syllabus is like that. So the students of current first year are going through a syllabus in which they can choose their topics at any point of time. Which subject they want to choose at what point of time or in which year, that is totally dependent on them. So you can understand the academic bank of credit that this policy is talking about. I believe that we are already ready with it. So we are ready with this bank of credit thing. Only a little modification is needed so that it is capable. We are capable enough that after 1 year, a student gets enough education so as to get a certificate. That little modification needs to be done. I believe so that part of doing it after 1 year certificate, 2 years advanced diploma, after 3 years bachelor's degree, this thing can be done in maybe 1 year time. So in 1 year we should be ready with this first part of thing. Now the second part is the regulation thing that really UEM Jaipur, I believe, does not have a role to play apart from following the regulations. I believe that there will not be too much difference of regulation of the college of the university to work. So I don't think that should take much time, and we are already in the process of NAC, so that is already done, I should say. Regarding this thing, autonomy, we are an autonomous institute, so the new policy of autonomy has to be gone through, and maybe we will take 2 years of time, but depends again, that again depends that what changes this policy brings in autonomy, because that has not been actually given in details. But I can take a guess of 2 years. I can target a time of 2 years, timeline of 2 years for that. I believe that is fair enough. Regarding this faculty, we have got a transparent faculty recruitment policy, so this should not take any time. I can say it should not take any time, because we are following all policies for recruiting of faculties, and our policy is one of the most stringent policies across the country for recruitment of faculties. So this should not take time. Regarding teacher education, you know that already we are under this NITT. So with this NITT in action, our teachers, all our teachers who are having less than 5 years of experience are already under this teacher education under NITT. So you can understand that teachers having less than 5 years are already having this teacher education. And most important part is we are funding the teachers, that if the teachers complete the course, after that they are eligible to apply for reimbursement of the entire course under NITT. So we are already in a system of teacher education. We are following it already. Regarding mentoring, I am happy to say that I am also one of the mentors under this NITT. So this mentoring system of teachers is in our system. And in our system, in the routine, you can find when a teacher takes a class, a senior teacher is also assigned to sit in the class and to listen and then discuss about the pros and cons and what can be improved. So we have got a mentoring policy for that, but then again, it might take an year time once this is properly formulated. So I take a time of 1 year over here. Regarding financial support, we are providing free ships to many students, scholarships to many students, and I think this socially and economically disadvantaged groups that it has been talked about, we actually take those things into system. When a student, right now, I should not say it's a very formal system that we are following. It's an informal system. We actually invite applications from the students, that if you think you belong to this group of socially or economically disadvantaged, you can write an application, and against that application we grant the scholarship. So that is the financial support we provide to the student. It can be framed more formally, and I believe that should again take around 1 year of time at least. So apart from that, open and distance learning, all our students are compulsorily need to cover at least one topic of MOOCs in every semester. So if more is required, or integration of MOOC is required in the what should I say, in the assessment, then it is already done. Integration of MOOC is already done. If more is needed, then it can be done immediately. That should not take any time. And regarding technology, we follow a lot of technology in our education. We actually do most of the classes we take through laboratories. So, but again, it has to be more and more clear about what technology is expected. I will still take 2 years of time. I will keep 2 years of time in our hand to implement more and more technology. Once it is given, app-based learning, more and more apps to be used, I think that will take a little bit of time. So 2 years of time I may take in hand for that. Languages, I do not comment, as long as a proper framework comes into picture. But at the moment we follow English only, so this might take time. This might take a little bit of time with our mother tongue and local language. We have to think of the books to be followed. We have to think about the syllabus, if any change needs to be done in it. So this might take at 3 years of time also. So let me take 3 years of time for this. And internalization, yes, we are always in a position to compete with the top world rank universities, and it will be a big challenge for us, but we are ready for it. We'll be up to it once it comes into picture. We should say that we are focused more towards technical. So our name suggests that, University of Engineering and Management. We are more into technical education, though we have got health science in the form of BPT and other things we have. But we impart professional education. Internship is very much a part of our curriculum right from the first year. Our students right from first year go for this internships and all those. So this should not take time. We are ready for it. And yes, we can achieve this thing also. We may contribute a lot to achieve adult literacy. We are open to it if government forms a policy so that adult people can also be incorporated into it. It is allowed. We will immediately incorporate. I think we can immediately do that. But this implementation of the whole policy, once it is properly, the framework is given, the whole time that I take is maximum of 3 years. So I believe we will be able to do everything within 3 years from today. So maybe by 2023, the batch that we take in 2023, we will be full ready and up to it. That is my take on this, my answer on this.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Biswajoy. And I truly agree with all of your points. There is one question in the chat box, and it's from Kausar Day. I want to ask it to Professor Dr. Biswajoy Chatterjee that will our 2020 and 2024 BTech course will be affected by NEP 2021?
What do you want, Kausar? Do you want to get affected by that? First and foremost thing, Kausar, is how do you look at it? Affected means you look at it positively or you look at it negatively. Straightforward answer to it is all colleges will try to implement it gradually. So partially, yes. Like you might have the advantage of a CBCS syllabus in very near future. Maybe by the end of second year, you will be given more and more options or electives to choose. That is a good thing for you. You won't get that facility of going out after 3 years or 2 years with a proper certificate or degree. No, you will not be affected by that, or you will not have that advantage. But yes, you will be partially having that advantage of choosing more and more electives under choice-based credit system. So partially, yes. As far as I'm concerned, partially, yes.
So there are no more questions in the chat box. Still time is there. If any student wants to put a question, he can just put.
I think Professor Aniruddha Mukherjee, he is there now. Professor Mukherjee, are you there? Professor Mukherjee, are you there? You can unmute yourself.
I am here.
Yeah, okay, so you can ask the question that you could not ask Dr. Anurag.
Yes, sir. So I have one question for Dr. Aniruddha Mukherjee, that how NEP will help in developing higher order thinking among students?
Well, Dr. Hamilton, as I had previously replied, that national education policy will obviously put forth a comprehensive, goal-oriented and focused research policies at the institutional level. So far, the students in India have historically focused on preparing for exams, a system which involving years of learning by rote. So the proposed new education policy, which I believe, which emphasizes on problem solving and critical thinking skills, will help the next generation of Indian students finally to prepare for life and navigate uncertain futures. And particularly for teachers across India, the reality which brought it because of the pandemic crisis has tested their ability to adapt and innovate to changing scenario. And well, with the national education policy, the teachers will also have an opportunity to nurture this very same values of adaptability and innovation in their classrooms. I would like to cite a very simple example of Finland, which happens to be one of the best education systems in the world. See, from an early age in the schools in Finland, they challenge students to look at real-world problems through the lens of different subjects. For instance, whether mathematics can hold a solution to climate change or any other subjects. So, national education policy also envisions at this level all higher education institutions being multidisciplinary. The aim of national education policy, as suggested, all education institutions will be multidisciplinary. So this approach will definitely assist in problem solving, in enhancing the problem solving skills and research orientation for the students. Thank you. I believe I have answered to your query.
Yes, sir, you have answered my query. There is one question in the chat box that is from Awardeep Hazra. He's saying that there is written public investment in education field is to be increased to 6% of GDP. It means cost will be increased. And what about the student-teacher ratio? That is 32:1 in India. That is less than Brazil and China.
Should I take that question firstly, Dr. Anurag?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's for you, sir.
Okay, public investment in education field, I don't agree with you that cost might be increased, because like there is public investment in education, also there is an indication, as I mentioned, that business houses may also fund it, may fund education, and that will be considered under the basic investments or social investments that a business hub will do over the year. So I can say that will help education. So that might not be the case that it cost will be increased. And regarding 32:1, yes, that's a challenge. That is definitely a challenge. Like student teacher ratio, if you increase, if you are talking about increasing the gross enrollment ratio, then more and more students will increase. But yes, the policy has also talked about a framework for recruitment of more and more teachers, and more education to encourage teachers. So I believe that more teachers will also be recruited, and there will be more and more teachers in the field to improve upon that ratio. So I believe that like right now, UGC has formed the rule of UGC is you must have all educational institutes must have 20:1. So at least for the BTech courses, engineering courses, and for the other courses, 25:1. So the colleges are forced to recruit more and more teachers, and that also ensures that more and more people come in this profession. So that will definitely improve upon the ratio, I believe so. Professor Sharma might have his say over here.
Yes, sir. Definitely, I agree with you with all these aspects. But there are, I just want to discuss few things regarding in the last actually, because NEP, as we are already saying that it is a better thing to implement and to go ahead with, but definitely there are certain points in it which need to be considered, like NEP is not talking about RT Act, means what is basically to be done with that, because universalization of education is there, but it is not talking about the RTE, means right to education. So that is the important aspect we need to see over here. And one more thing, like the student asked, like increasing the cost of education. I think that will not happen, because what NEP is saying that the education part should attract 6% amount of the GDP. It doesn't mean that the fee will be increased from the student side. It means the basic facilities like whatsoever the digital things, whatsoever the content you are receiving right now, the book, text, etc., including you can say the teachers' participation with students will increase. But for that, spending from the government side or whatsoever the, you can say, the institutional side will have to increase. So that doesn't mean that student will have to pay more, but it definitely means that institution, government, or you can say the whatsoever the organization is running the training or institutions will have to spend more money on training part. So that is there. Okay. So I think
and I believe that if this is made a part of the CSR, corporate social responsibility, then I also believe that a lot of investment into education will come will come from the business houses, which will be a
yes,
positive side.
Yeah, over here, I want to add in the last, Dr. Anurag, can I go ahead with one point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, actually, in NEP, it was said that public spirited philanthropic higher education institutions. So it is actually basically for private universities, which the NEP 2020 suggests have not been treated equally in infuriating for those who fight against the commodification of education. So basically, the proposal is to set up a higher education in every district. However, modalities, functioning, operationalities have not been made clear. So as such, institution will require land and infrastructure and administrative resources to function. So NEP is right now is not taking care of all those activities. Means how private institutions or private universities will set up, because as Dr. Vishnu already pointed out that more than you can say 350 million students will be entering into the system. So how that particular seats increase will take place? Definitely, we have to have more educational institutions set up. For that, land requirement will be there, teachers requirement will be there. So states, government, or education department will have to take care of that. Now, 6% of GDP thing was there when the first policy, you can say, in 1968 came. And it was again reiterated in 1986 that, okay, 6% of GDP should be there. That was confirmed again in 92 that when the review of the policy that again 6% of GDP should be there, but it was never achieved. And again in 2020, it was there that, okay, 6% GDP should be there. But due to COVID-19 crisis, the budget expenditure on education definitely is expected to fall further. So that we have to take care of that, what maximum we can provide to our education system. Now, another basic, you can say, a fear, or we can say of drawback. It's a good thing again, but it has some negative impact also. Inviting foreign universities to set up learning institutions in India. We can understand that wherever the foreign universities, which is very important player in their field, like public Ivy League universities, which enjoy prestigious reputation across the globe, will they come to India? Definitely, some few private universities which are very good in their statistics, they will come. And most of the top schools abroad are public institutions which are run on citizens' taxes and might not have a mandate to expand. So private foreign institution could create a disproportionate imbalance between Indian versus foreign universities in terms of quality. And it would be better to set up inter-university centers within Indian universities to cope up that particular aspect. So where the students can undertake lessons, as well as you can say joint research programs with international and Indian scholars. So I think these were more points. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Actually, there is one comment from Avardeep Hazra. He says, I wanted to ask that there was written public investment. So either that means investment for public or investment by public.
I hope when we say public investment, it's a government expenses collected from definitely from the public taxes. And whenever it says that it will be given from the government, but it's like we are having in a tax system, there's an educational cess. So that particular percentage of amount is going to improve the educational system in the country. So that kind of money, because whatsoever the money right now government is having, that is from the public taxes, like that.
I have one more question, and it's from Gunjan Kumar. He says, sir, let us know few inputs. What steps taken by NEP 2020 policy to address the issue of graduate expected skill and industry expectation of industry ready professional?
So Professor Sharma, are you going to take that firstly?
No, sir, please kindly take.
Okay. Okay, so steps taken by NEP 2020, see both your points, graduate expected skill or industry expectation, I think has been covered by the fact that it has been repeatedly said that it should be professional learning and it should be industry-based learning. It has been specifically mentioned, which means professional learning. Once you're saying, you see, again, I said, it is not a thing which has been talking about all intricate details, because time and again, the policy has talked about frameworks to be formed later, further detailed policies to be formed later. But as soon as you talk about professional learning to be increased, it automatically means that there will be more corporates, more industry houses coming into education, and students going for internships during their education, which automatically will increase the number of industry ready professionals in the country. That is what I believe. And I believe that the frameworks which are going to come up is going to address this issue, that more and more industry ready professionals will be generated. So I'm taking this policy in a positive way, in quite a positive way. And I say that, yes, Professor Gunjan, if you are concerned that whether the policy has addressed that industry expectation of industry ready professional, I would say yes, it has expected it to the extent it should have.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your answer. There are no further questions in the chat box. Gunjan is saying thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Gunjan. Thank you. Okay,
now it's
then,
time for the vote. Yes, sir, please.
Oh, thank you. So you go ahead with it. I'm done.
So it's time for the vote of thanks. I just want to thank all the panelists and the speakers who have given their time. It's a busy schedule for them, but they have come, and especially I want to thank all the attendees. They have stayed till the end, and it's really interesting. And personally, I have learned so many things from it. So I just want to thank all of you for coming to the event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Anurag. Thank you.
Welcome, sir.